Hello, and welcome to this presentation on the BC Arts Council's Professional Development Program. We at the BC Arts Council carry out our work on the lands of Indigenous nations throughout what is colonially known as British Columbia, and we are grateful for our continuing relationships with Indigenous peoples in BC that develop through our work together. We offer gratitude to the Lekwungen people, known today as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, on whose ancestral lands we operate our main offices and where Michelle and I are recording this today. My name is Clayton Baraniak. I'm a program advisor at the BC Arts Council, and I'm joined by my fellow program advisor, Michelle Benjamin. Together, we co-facilitate the professional development program, with Michelle taking the studio arts disciplines, such as visual and media arts, literary arts, as well as museums and cultural centers. I take responsibility for the performing arts disciplines, including dance, theater, music, comedy, and interdisciplinary performing arts. But really, we work together very closely on this entire program intake and are happy to advise you or redirect your inquiry to the appropriate person. In this presentation, we will go through the Professional Development Program application form section by section and provide information on what each section is asking you to share about your project, how questions relate to the assessment criteria, and how to address the assessment criteria in your responses. If you don't already have it, you might find it useful to have a copy of the program guidelines handy. You can download those from the Professional Development Program page on our website. If you want an overview of the BC Arts Council, our strategic plan, the professional development guidelines, and exclusions and further grant writing tips, you can watch our other pre-recorded presentation available on our website, bcartscouncil.ca, on the professional development page. If you have any questions that are not answered in this presentation, please be in touch. Our contact information is available on the Professional Development Program page and on our website, and also at the end of this presentation.
The professional development application intake closes on Thursday, August 31st at 11:59 p.m. The next intake will open on September 7th and close on December 14th. We advise you to submit your application in advance of those dates, though, as after 5 p.m., our office is closed and we cannot support any last-minute technical issues that you might have. If you have not already registered in our online system, you should do that as soon as we finish this presentation. The professional development program is open to individual applicants only and will not accept applications from organizations or collectives, just people. We also have 2 more intakes this year. Check out the program guidelines for the opening and closing dates and plan your professional development ahead. You can apply for a project that starts any time after you have submitted your application. You'll find a complete application preview document in Microsoft Word on the program page on our website. This is a useful document to use as you start to prepare your application and is designed specifically to work with screen readers and allows you to work offline on your answers. We're going to launch right into a review of the application questions for this program. The application is organized into the tabs that you see on the screen. The questions in the tabs correspond generally with the assessment criteria as outlined on pages 7 and 8 of the program guidelines. We'll talk about the application itself. Pay attention to the word counts. This indicates the maximum allowable words. You do not have to write the maximum number of words. Use as many words as you need to express your idea or to answer the question up to the maximum. Also, if you are working in the application preview Word document, the word counts in that document may not match the way our online system counts the words. So it's a good idea to paste your responses into the online system early to avoid having to make last-minute edits, particularly if you are writing right up to the word limit. We encourage the use of short, clear sentences or point form, as long as you can still provide answers that are fully responding to each question. The assessors are not marking you on your grammar. Remember that assessors may not be familiar with your work, your specific practices, or your community or communities or culture. Provide the information they need to understand your project. Avoid or explain specialized or technical terms, academic language, or expressions that may be difficult to understand. Some examples might be somatic practice, land-based, polyphonic, verbing. If you must use specialized terms, include a brief definition or description of their meaning. An asterisk next to the question in the online system indicates that that field or question is mandatory.
So let's start with the Profile Details tab, the first tab on the application. This is system generated content, so you just need to look it over and make sure it's all correct. If the profile summary above is not correct, go to your personal profile and update it before completing the application. To access your personal profile, you will click Home in the top right corner of the Grant Management System screen. And from your home page, you'll click Personal Profile, which is a crowd icon. Changes to your address information specifically must be submitted by email to bcartscouncil@gov.bc.ca. Also, a reminder, in your profile, you should also complete or at least review the designated priority groups section, which includes a questionnaire, and complete or review the voluntary self-ID. These things may qualify you for strategic investment funding or prioritization of funding, so they're definitely worth checking out. Now we'll move on to the Applicant Details tab. The first two questions, what is the applicant's primary field of practice? And what is the applicant's primary role within their field of practice? Are both used to help identify what you do and provide context to your application for the assessors. Select what mostly, which, select what most closely reflects your artistic practice. There is also a question about your residency in BC, which is not shown on this slide. This is used to determine eligibility for the program. You have to have been residing in BC for at least 12 months prior to applying. You're allowed to travel still, but you should have an address in BC and file taxes here. We also ask how many years you have been engaged professionally in your primary practice. You'll need to have been practicing for at least 2 years as a professional artist. It also is a way that we track data on who is applying. The next two questions are briefly describe your arts practice, your path to your current practice, and your long-term practice intentions, and provide up to 3 relevant career highlights from your professional practice that demonstrate your capacity and experience to undertake this project. These questions help determine eligibility and give the assessors a sense of what the impact would be on you and your practice, which is in the assessment criteria. We've heard assessors ask, who is this person? How did they get here? And where are they going? These kinds of details can help make your request more compelling if it fits into a larger vision or trajectory for your career. The second question is asking to provide 3 highlights. This also helps the assessors determine if it's feasible for you to do the project you're pitching. For example, if you have never tried point work in ballet, would it be feasible for you to suddenly do a 5-week point work intensive? Ouch. Those 3 highlights should be relevant to the application. So if you're wanting to learn about dance, don't highlight all of your theater work here. Highlight the dance experiences you've had. Now we'll move on to the project information tab. The 3 questions first are which type of activity are you requesting support for, the amount requested, and is this a cohort or group learning activity? These 3 questions give the assessors a chance to understand the focus of your application. Which type of activity are you requesting support for only lets you select one area of focus for your application, be it a course or workshop, mentorship, or learning residency. Select the one that best fits. We understand that sometimes more than one might apply, but leave those details for later responses to questions. The third question is about cohort learning. This is when you and some other artists get together to do a learning project. For example, three artists all mentoring with one mentor, so they divide the fee for the mentor across their applications. Cohort learning is not registering for a group workshop. It is when you, as the applicant, organize the group learning yourself. Each applicant gets assessed separately in cohort learning and has to apply separately. We ask that you identify the other applicants in your cohort so we can be sure they are assessed fairly, and it is not a surprise to the assessors when three people are doing the same thing with the same people. The next two questions: have you confirmed your participation in this activity with the organization, teacher, master, advisor, host, presenter, or mentor as applicable? And if unconfirmed, what is the status of registration, application, or arrangements? These questions help the assessors gauge the feasibility of your project and your overall plan. If you are unconfirmed when you apply, but confirm after submitting, you should send me or Michelle an update once you do confirm. And we will understand that for some activities, no prior confirmation is required. Like, for example, if you just have to pay a registration fee, but want to make sure you have the money first, it's okay to not have confirmation and to just say, I will pay the registration fee once I get the grant. Continuing on in the project information tab, the assessors want the juicy details: who, what, and where. Make sure you include those in your application. It sets them up to understand the context and caliber of your project. Give the assessor those details, like school, institution, or host organization, title of course or workshop, the name of instructors or mentors. Some of these may not apply to you or your project, so if they don't, you can just leave them blank. The next two questions are: describe your proposed learning activities and or the focus of the course, mentorship, or residency, and what are your learning goals and or career development goals as they relate to this application. These questions really help assessors understand the potential impact on you and your practice and career. The impact on the applicant section of the assessment criteria, which we note is the most heavily weighted part of the criteria. You can provide either a written statement or an audio recording to answer these two questions specifically, as sometimes the way you speak is clearer than the way it may look on the page. For the first question, describe your proposed activities. Really focus on the nuts and bolts of what you're doing. Paint a clear picture of the activities so the assessors can imagine what it'll be like. For the second question about your goals, you can focus on why you want to do these activities, what your aspirations are with this work, what the desired outcomes or goals are, and why they will benefit your career and take you to the next level of your practice. Continuing with the project information tab, now we get a little more nuanced. How will this activity enhance your artistic or professional practice, growth, skill level, or technique, and what will you learn? And how will this activity increase potential for future opportunities and have an impact on your long-term career trajectory? The answers to these questions should respond to the impact on the applicant section of the assessment criteria in the program guidelines, and specifically to the first two bullets in that section, which are number one, impact on the applicant's artistic or professional practice, and number two, opportunities for the applicant's professional growth and the development of the next stage of their career. We ask you to what specific techniques you will learn. Don't be vague. A few contrasting examples of this might be: I'm going to improve my painting skills. Well, that's an answer, but it's pretty vague. Versus, I will learn how to create texture and create a more diverse color palette with conventional hues and paints, improving the depth of my representation and my ability to deliver realistic representations through nuanced coloring. That's got a lot of detail and is quite compelling. Another example might be, I'm going to improve my knowledge of lighting systems, which is also pretty unclear about what you're actually doing. versus I will learn to work with a variety of new models of lighting fixtures, including the Source 9 million modern AI supported LED light and moving lights that contain mini projectors, allowing me to map projections in significantly more complex ways and on surfaces that are moving in tandem with the lights and traditionally do not respond to conventional lighting instruments. Whoa, that's a lot of detail, and it sounds like a great project. The second question, how will this activity increase potential for future opportunities and have an impact on your long term career trajectory? With this question, you want to inspire the assessors with your vision of your career unfolding. Allow them to imagine how these skills will benefit your career moving forward and enhance your ability to develop your practice and career opportunities in the long term. Where do you see these skills taking you? And why do you think you need to get there? Tell them where you're going and show them the roadmap you envision to get there through this work.
Continuing on the project information tab, the answer to the next question should respond to the second two bullets in the impact on the applicant section of the assessment criteria. The question, why is this the right time for you to engage in this activity? We want to know what's happening in your career or practice right now that makes this particularly timely. Why is it important for you to be doing this learning at this moment in your career, in your life, or in the world? The next question is, why will this specific mentor, course, workshop, organization, or opportunity help you to achieve your learning goals? Why did you choose this mentor? What is it about this specific course or workshop or learning opportunity that is especially important or relevant or valuable to you, your learning goals, and the practice you work in? Is the person, course, or activity respected and reputable? Have you seen the results of this training in others? Is the type of opportunity sought after? And how does this tie back to your learning goals? On the next tab, the answers to these questions should respond to the impact on the community and the arts sector section of the assessment criteria in the program guidelines. The assessors want to know if, through engaging in this learning activity, you will not only be receiving personal and professional impact, but that your artistic community will also benefit. First question is, how might this project contribute to the art form or practice, including reclamation, preservation, or innovation? Here you want to talk about your specific art form or practice, and if it's relevant to the project, how will this work help to build, enhance, and develop your artistic community? Will it help to bring back a lost art form or preserve one that is at risk of being lost? Is it exploring new or innovative approaches that will influence your peers or colleagues? The next question is, how will this activity have an impact on your community or communities? This could mean any or all of your artistic, cultural, geographic, or other communities. Consider both immediate and long-term impacts. So does this opportunity somehow lay out a pathway or provide a vehicle for other parts of your community or your circles? Does it improve future conditions in your field or for other similar practitioners or people? One of our wise assessors said, when you kick open the door of opportunity, hold it open for others to walk through. That's what this question is getting at. So continuing with the project information tab, the next question is, does this project address an identified need in the sector? And if the answer is yes, describe that need and how the project will address it. We know there are needs out there in the sector, but sometimes it's hard, particularly in a cross-disciplinary panel, to understand what those needs really are. If you know the sector is in need of the training or needs access to the skills that you are learning, let the assessors know that. For example, our theater company is having trouble finding light techs. Will this training enhance your capacity and skills as a light tech so that you can respond to some of that identified need? Does everyone have these skills you're learning, or are you filling a niche or a need? And just to clarify, it doesn't have to be a need in the sector. Professional development will support your practice development, and it is okay to say no to this question if you think it is a need in your specific practice, but not necessarily for everyone. For example, are theater companies having trouble finding light techs? And will this training enhance your capacity and skills as a light tech?
Continuing on in the project information tab, these are the next few questions really dig into the assessment criteria as listed here. Impact on the community and art sector. The assessors really want to be sure that you will not have a negative impact on practitioners or communities you may be working with or learning from. The specific points they will consider to evaluate the integrity of your project include examining if your plans include ethical approaches to research, collaborative processes, contributors, source materials, cultural considerations and protocols, engagement with Indigenous peoples, communities, practices, materials, and beliefs, and meaningful contributions to equity deserving or underrepresented artistic practices, arts practitioners, and cultural communities. You will notice the yes/no questions that specifically address each of these ethical approaches, which are number one, is your work influenced by or does it involve or reflect cultures or communities outside of your own? And if you select yes, the question describes steps taken to respectfully reflect and collaborate with these communities and integrate an equitable and ethical approach to your work does appear. The second one is, does your project engage with First Nations, Métis, or Inuit peoples, communities, or content? And if you select yes, the question, provide context to your relationship and describe plans to ensure a respectful, ethical, and culturally safe engagement will appear. BC Arts Council recognizes the systematic racism and colonialism that have had far reaching negative impacts on many marginalized and equity seeking communities. If your project intersects with communities that are not your own, the assessors would like to know what knowledge or connection you already have to that community or communities, and if you can do your work with them without perpetuating any historic harms. In fact, will this positively contribute to that equity seeking community in some way? If so, the assessors really want to know. For example, if you're studying Japanese painting techniques, working with an elder expert from the field, are there any protocols that you would need to follow? Or are you learning a specific singing technique that has some religious connotations from a country that you have never been to? How will you respectfully engage in the learning activity? Do you know anything about the context of that practice? And if not, how do you intend to find out? Also, if you're learning a Western European approach from someone who is not Western European, you can still indicate how you may support a racialized practitioner in their work. And again, this may not apply to your work at all. For example, if you are learning how to write music in your own ancestral language from a speaker from your own culture, well, that's your community. And so it's okay to say no to those questions. But before you automatically say no, take a bit of time to reflect. It may actually be relevant. Continuing on with the project information tab, we have, does your project present any accessibility challenges? For example, physical, financial, technological? Please select yes or no. And if you select yes, the question, how do you plan to address those challenges and remove barriers to access appears. Further to those ethical approaches, we ask that you consider the accessibility of your project and let the assessors know of any foresight, consideration, or plans related to barriers or supports in your project. Are there any accessibility concerns that might be identified in the learning activities you have planned? If so, how are you going to address them? This could be for yourself, your mentor, the skills or knowledge you plan to learn, where you will learn it, physical spaces, financial implications, and any assistive technologies that you may need to plan for. Before you answer no, again, carefully consider if there is accessibility needs that you have not thought of. This question also specifically relates to the assessment criteria impact on the community and arts sector, the integrity of the project, including ethical approaches to meaningful contributions to equity deserving and underrepresented artistic practices, art practitioners, and cultural communities.
Still on the project information tab. Next question is, how does this project and or your artistic practice align with the BC Arts Council's priorities of reconciliation, equity, diversity, inclusion, and access? With our strategic plan, Extending Foundations, we have placed these things, reconciliation, equity, diversity, inclusion, and access, at the heart of everything we are doing. Does your activity represent any or all of those things in some way? This is your chance to connect your activities to these big topics. Before you answer this question, it would be a good idea to review the BC Arts Council strategic plan and to bring those concepts into your thinking. You can read the action plan and the BC Arts Council strategic plan on our website. This responds to the assessment criteria impact on the community and arts sector in particular, and the bullets impacts of the project on BC's arts and culture sector, including but not limited to contributions to rural and remote communities, as well as the integrity of the project, including ethical approaches that Clayton just reviewed.
Continuing on, we come to the feasibility section in the project information tab. The first question is, what is the work plan, timeline, or schedule? Include milestones, benchmarks, and or specific dates and times. The answers to these questions should respond to the feasibility section of the assessment criteria in the program guidelines. The timeline you present should match with your description of the learning activities. You can also include goals and milestones, such as major parts that are completed or assignments. This also gives a sense of how much time you'll be spending on the activities. This should match your request for subsistence. Sometimes learning goals and activities can seem lofty or unachievable to assessors. This question is an opportunity to show the assessors exactly how you plan to do it all and can really bring the project to life in their minds. It can also help illuminate what you will need to accomplish and what you have set out to do and inform your expenses as well. Continuing on with the feasibility section in the project information tab, the next question is, will artists, arts and cultural practitioners, and technicians involved with this project be paid in alignment with industry standards within the field of practice? For example, CARFAC. Select yes, no, or not applicable. If you select yes, then the question, explain how fair compensation will be determined within the project and or the community context appears. The second question is, will elders and or knowledge keepers involved with this project be compensated fairly according to community context? And if you respond yes, the question, explain how the compensation level was determined appears. These are two more of the yes/no questions that relate to feasibility, particularly to how you have determined the fees you are paying people. If you are not paying anyone individually, for example, if you've just paid a registration fee or course, you can say not applicable or no to this question. That's totally okay. However, if you have made an arrangement with a mentor or teacher, tell the assessors how you came up with that amount. In some cases, it can be simple, like the teacher charges $60 an hour as their standard rate. Great. In other cases, it can be a bit more complex. So let them know how you determined the fee so they know that it is fair and that it has been discussed in advance. This should also match any confirmation that you've included from a mentor in your support material. In particular, for elders and knowledge keepers, there is no standard amount to reference for fees. What the assessors want to know is that you have discussed the amount or are basing it on something that you know and not just an amount that you have added on. If you have a relationship with that elder or knowledge keeper, you can discuss how that fee was reached in the context of your relationship. Continuing on with the feasibility section, up next is the question, are you employed by an organization that will benefit from this project? And if yes, how is your employer contributing to or supporting your participation, if at all? For example, paid time off, paying some costs, providing space, etc. This relates to the assessment criteria feasibility. When considering the viability of the project, the committee will assess the applicant's capacity and experience to undertake this project. This is another yes no question. If you are a contract artist that works for many different companies and organizations, then don't worry about it. You're not employed, you don't get benefits, and you don't have a regular role in an organization, so it doesn't apply to you. However, if you are regularly employed at an organization and your employer may benefit and not be supporting you, well, that's okay too. The assessors just want to know if the training is relevant to your practice, but also very exciting or applicable to your work at the organization. And for example, your board wants to give you time off with pay to do it, but can't quite afford the fee to, let them know those details. The assessors want to hear that. It shows support from your employer and that they value what you're going to do and that they want to give you the space to do the work. However, if you are a technician for, say, Vancouver Civic Theatres, a large multi-million dollar organization, but want the BC Arts Council to pay for occupational safety training that is required for your work at Civic Theatres, the assessors may ask the question, why isn't Civic Theatres paying for this training? So consider that when applying. Is this funding specifically for your organization or your current job? Or will it benefit you for your entire career moving beyond this particular employer? That longevity of benefit to your career and future opportunities is key to making a compelling request. If something is focused solely on your current employer, the assessors may question what it will do for you in the long run. Let them know that longer runway of your career and how this impacts you well into the future. Continuing on in the feasibility section, the next questions are, does your project present any risk to physical safety for yourself or those with whom you are planning to engage? And if yes, how do you plan to ensure safety, or what qualifications do you, your mentors, and or hosts have to ensure safety standards are maintained? And the second question is, does your project involve emotionally sensitive or traumatic material? And if yes, what supports are in place to ensure emotional and mental well-being? These are more yes no questions that are geared to specific applications, and they may not apply to you, and that's okay. However, we hope that you'll consider the physical, emotional, and mental safety of the work you are doing on both yourself and on those who you're working with. These questions come up at the assessment table a lot, and they want to understand your perspective on those topics.
So now we're moving on to the budget tab, which includes the expense summary form. So all applicants must complete the expense summary. The maximum request is $7,500, and you should only include expenses on this form for which you are requesting support through this program. It is not necessary to complete each line. You can leave an expense field blank as appropriate. You should provide notes for each included expense. I'll go through the 5 areas of eligible expenses. The first is subsistence. So this is a maximum of $750 per week that can be prorated for part-time activities. So this is what it costs you to live, to pay your rent or your mortgage, to buy food, take a local bus as you are engaged in your professional development activity. The second is travel and related expenses, for example, accommodation and meals for professional development activities that are happening outside of your region. Travel expenses may be for yourself or for a mentor or advisor who may be coming to your place. The maximum meal per diem is $65 per day. Please remember that the expense details must be provided in the notes section. The next is supplies, and here we mean consumable supplies, things that you will use up over the course of your project. Also things like equipment rental or reference materials. This does not include capital expenses, so the purchase of computers or sound equipment is not eligible, but you can rent them. The next section in the expense form is eligible fees or honoraria. So this can be a fee for mentors, instructors, or advisors, or it could be tuition fees or registration fees or a residency fee. For a mentorship project, we leave it to you to determine a reasonable and acceptable fee, and the letter that you provide from the mentor should make a clear reference to the financial and time arrangements that you've made. You can also add childcare in here if you need it. Just make sure to put it in the notes. The next section is the production or exhibition or program or rehearsal space or venue rental, if it's directly relevant to your learning project. The expense form will automatically add up the total of your expenses. And as a double check, you should see that the number on your expense form matches the total request on the project information tab that you completed earlier in the application. Now we'll talk about the support material tab. Remember that all uploaded documents should be PDF files. You want them to be easy to read. Assessors are looking at hundreds of documents. Making their job easier should be one of your goals. All applicants must upload your resume or your CV, and that should include your professional training as well as related paid professional activities and work experience. Keep that document to a maximum of 3 pages, and it should be one single file. You should also include a confirmation from your institution or teacher, host, presenter, advisor, or mentor. The confirmation should include specific information about agreements, activities, schedule, compensation, or fees. And then finally, you should include a resume or a brief biography for any individual advisors or mentors who are participating in the project outside of a formal organization or institution. This should be, as I said, a PDF document and up to 2 pages. You'll see that there's no place to put samples of your work in this application. The quality of your work is not being assessed, and any additional support materials will not be reviewed by the assessors. The application is assessed on the responses to the questions, your resume and CV, and the supporting confirmations or invitations only. The program focuses on the impact on you and not on your artistic merit.
Now we'll move on to the Access Support tab. The questions at the Access Support tab are you eligible for access support as an individual artist or arts and cultural practitioner who self-identifies as deaf or having a disability? You can select yes or no. And will you be applying for access support? And you can select yes or no. If you are requesting access support for your project, which can include any accessibility services, rental equipment, or support people that you'll need to help you or your mentor with the project, you can choose to either submit that access support request while submitting your grant, which is option 1 in the drop-down menu, or you can wait until you receive confirmation of funding and request support at the time you receive confirmation, which is option 2. If you select option 1, the access support application will appear. You will be asked to provide descriptions of the barriers and supports or solutions for your project, as well as how much they will cost. For more information on the Access Support Program, you can contact our main line at 250-356-1718 or visit bcartscouncil.ca/accessibility. Our access coordinators would be happy to discuss what you can request for access supports and go through the application with you. Pardon me. We are always looking for ways to improve how we communicate with the arts and culture sector in BC. This section is optional and is not a part of the application process, but your answers will help us to improve the services we provide. So if you have time, we would appreciate if you would complete the feedback tab and answer such questions as how did you learn about the intake for the program? How would you like to be informed about our programs? If this is your first time applying to BCAC, did you attend an information session? Have you ever received BC Arts Council funding, and how long did this application take you to complete? Finally, we get to the Declaration tab. In this tab, you will confirm and promise that you meet the eligibility criteria for this program, the information that you provided is complete and true, and that you will abide by all applicable laws. You also consent to the BC Arts Council collecting, protecting, and sharing your information in accordance with the Freedom of Information and Private Protection of Privacy Act. The applicant is responsible for the application content. When application assistance has been provided, the applicant must review application content, complete the acknowledgement of declaration, content checkbox, and submit the application themselves. So thank you for your interest in our programs. Please reach out to us if you have any further questions and follow our social media channels to stay up to date on all our news and programs. Our main phone line is 250-356-1718. This is the main line for the BC Arts Council. You can ask whomever answers the phone your question, and if they don't know the answer, they will definitely connect you with someone who does. You can email us at bcartscouncil@gov.bc.ca, visit us on the web at bcartscouncil.ca, find us on Facebook and Twitter, and we've included our both mine and Michelle's contact information on this slide, so you can reach out to us directly if you'd like. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see your excellent, compelling application soon.
Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to talking to you with more questions.